How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brown Logan, and today I bring you a story coming out of Salt Lake City, Utah. It's a crazy video. I'm sure many of you may have seen it by now. You're seeing a nurse be drug out of a hospital by police, arrested for not allowing a blood sample to be taken from an unconscious patient. Now, before we get into the actual video, and by the way, I do have the full video, or as full as I was able to find, not just the last little bit you may have seen in the news, because that's where things really get heated and ramped up. So, of course, they want to kind of focus on that to show you how bad it is, but they're not showing you the full video to give it to you in its full context. So I'm going to do that. But before we get into it, I just want to kind of tee it up for you. Now, the young lady in question who was being arrested is named Alex Wubbels, and she's actually a former Olympian. She was an alpine skier, I'm sure, pretty much in that area, Salt Lake City, Utah, whatever. So now she wants to be a nurse. That's her next thing, and she's doing her job pretty well based upon the tape. Now, the person in question that was supposed to get some blood drawn from him to give to the police, or the police thought that was going to happen, is a guy named William Gray. Now, William Gray is actually a reserve police officer in Rigby, Idaho, which is right up the road from Salt Lake City. It's kind of far away, but not really that far, probably within the same general region if you're going to be in that area. And his semi-truck got hit head on by a guy named Marcos Torres, who actually died on the scene. Now, William Gray is severely injured. He suffered burns. He was set on fire in the actual crash. But the reason why the police are there is because the guy, Marcos Torres, was on a high-speed chase away from the police. And as a result of the high-speed chase, he crashed into the guy, William Gray, who's now in the hospital. So the police went to get a blood sample to make sure that William Gray was not under the influence, because once William Gray awakes, that might be a lawsuit, because it's like, okay, you were on a high-speed chase with the guy, and as a result, he crashed into me, so now I have injuries. So maybe they're trying to mitigate their losses. I'm not really quite sure. What they did here in the hospital definitely won't help their case. But before I get into my reaction and before I get into the actual video, I just want to say this. This is not really a police bashing video. I'm just giving you the story and telling you my spin on it. I support the police 100%. I'm not a cop hater by any stretch of the imagination. But at the end of the day, this situation, they were actually wrong. So I'm going to get into my reaction. I'm going to get into any kind of comparisons to anything else, any Black Lives Matter type situation. And that's pretty much what it is. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
Is this patient under arrest?
Nope.
He still says he's not under arrest. Does it have anything
No.
else? Do you have an electronic warrant?
No.
No. No to every single one. Hold on, Brad. So I printed this off. This is what I was told to print off. And hold on. Brad, I'm just putting on speaker so you can. So I have this. It says obtaining blood samples for police enforcement from patients suspected to be under the influence. Okay, this is something that you guys agreed to with this hospital. The three things that allow us to do that are if you have an electronic warrant, patient consent, or patient under arrest. And neither of those things, the patient can't consent. He's told me repeatedly that he doesn't have a warrant, and the patient is not under arrest. So I'm just trying to do what I'm supposed to do. That's all. So.
Okay, so I take it without those in place, I'm not going to get blood. Is that, am I fair to surmise that?
Alex, you're not representing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why is he continuing to blame you?
I don't know. I have no idea why he's blaming me. I'm just representing.
Why are you blaming the messenger, sir?
She's the one that has told me no.
Yeah, but sir, you're making a huge mistake right now.
Okay.
Like you're making a huge mistake because you're threatening a nurse.
Okay. No, we're done. We're done. You're under arrest. We're going. We're done.
Not okay!
I said we're done. I said we're done. I said we're done.
Hey. I have administration on the way. Sir, hey, please.
Okay,
administration.
she can sit in my car while they're coming.
This is unnecessary, man.
You're right.
This is my department, and this is completely unnecessary.
Completely
unnecessary.
She's under arrest.
That's fine, but it doesn't have
For
to be
doing
like
her
this.
job?
Okay,
That's
I'm
fine.
doing my job. She does hers.
That's fine.
Okay, I'm leaving now with her. Okay, anybody who wants to prevent that, that's your option. He will be taking them. Okay, so take your hand off her, please.
I have hospital administration coming. They can talk to you.
Just please. Why are you so... Please, sir, you're hurting me.
Then walk.
No, I have no reason to walk. Stop. You're hurting me and assaulting me. Please, I can't believe it. What is happening? What is happening?
Have a seat.
Brad, what is going on?
She's the one that has told me no.
Yeah, but sir, you're making a huge mistake right now. Like you're making a huge mistake because you're threatening a nurse.
Okay.
Oh, please.
No, we're done.
No,
we're done. You're under arrest.
Hey,
We're done.
Sir, I have administration coming. Hey,
seriously. Hey. Hey. Hey.
You're assaulting me! Stop! Stop! I've done
You hold
nothing
your phone.
wrong!
I have administration.
I'll hold your phone.
I've done nothing wrong! Take my phone!
I have it in the
What is happening?
Hey.
This is crazy!
And this is completely unnecessary.
This is crazy!
That's fine. It doesn't have to be like this.
Hey.
Why is he so angry?
That's fine.
Okay? I'm leaving now with her.
Tell Brad what's happening.
Anybody who
That's my
wants to
manager.
prevent that, that's your option. He will be taking them. Okay? So, take your hand off her, please.
I have hospital administration coming. They can talk to you.
Sir.
You can talk to him. Let him take her to the car.
Then walk.
No, I have no reason to walk. Stop! You're hurting me and assaulting me. Please, I can't believe it. What is happening? What is happening? I just feel betrayed. I feel angry. I feel a lot of things, and I feel I still am confused. The only job I have as a nurse is to keep my patients safe. A blood draw is not, it just gets thrown around there like it's some simple thing, but blood is your blood. That's your property.
Okay, so you see that now. That's pretty much cut and dry. I mean, the reason why I showed you the whole thing, or as much as I was able to find from their body camera, is because you needed to see the beginning part where she's on the phone trying to make sure everything's right and she's doing everything right, and she printed out the actual law that they have to follow. See, the thing about it is that you have certain laws you got to follow when you are, in the medical field. You can't just do whatever you want to do. If you're a doctor and you don't do things right with a patient, you mess up on a patient's surgery or whatever, you can be sued for malpractice. You may even go to jail for that. So it's a lot of legal implications involved in the whole situation. If the nurse was to go in there and draw blood from a guy that's unconscious for a sample to give to the police, she could actually be in some legal trouble because she's violating his rights. You got HIPAA, you got all kind of other stuff. Imagine it like this. It's like a police officer going to somebody's house with no search warrant, rummaging through your things and then taking stuff and using it for evidence. That's not going to be admissible in court because you did not follow the law appropriately. And if this nurse was to go get that blood sample from the guy while he's unconscious, that could be considered theft. Now she is in trouble, stealing, violating HIPAA, violating privacy. All of that could be on her head. And then on top of that, you could actually sue the hospital for what the nurse has done. So the nurse really was doing the right thing. Now, I don't know where the officer came from. Maybe they came from Idaho and the laws are different there than they are in Utah, but I doubt it. I think HIPAA is nationwide, so I don't think that's the case. I think that the officer probably just didn't really know what he was doing and didn't understand what was happening. But at the end of the day, this is not something that needs to be like he needs to go to jail. It's just, definitely a civil lawsuit. Most certainly, I would cash out. If it was me in that situation, I'd be getting arrested with a big smile on my face because I know everything's on camera. The police have their body cameras, but you also have people that may be in there with their cell phones and also the cameras in the actual hospital. And then I'm able to plead my case. By the way, the young lady, Alex Wubbels, who was a nurse that was arrested, actually got let go with no charges. So that lets you know right there that the police were in the wrong, because if they were right to arrest her, then they would have, charged her with something and she wouldn't be let go. It'd be some kind of court date in the future and none of that. But it is going to be a court date in the future for sure for a lawsuit. And she should most certainly get broken off pretty nice, at least 6 figures. I'd go for 7 if I was a lawyer because that was really crazy. But you know what? Some people would say, oh, Anthony, you just defended her because she's white. Nah, I'm defending her because she's right, not because she's white. Because some people would try to say, Michael Brown, all the other people. Look, Michael Brown was out there just trying to fight the police. Like the police had the gun drawn on him and he was still charging them. Eyewitnesses said that right after it happened on videotape. Okay, so that's not really up for debate. There's been a lot of other situations that have happened, but you can't just judge everything based upon your skin color, based upon how you look, your gender or whatever. Look at each situation as it actually happened. Okay, that was not a Black Lives Matter, hands up, don't shoot situation. She was actually at work doing their job properly. It ain't like a guy that's on the street with a gun waving it around at people. Much different situation. You can't compare apples to oranges, compare apples to apples. Have you ever seen a black person at their job be harassed by the police and drug out for following the rules? I've not seen it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but if it does exist, please show it to me. I've never seen that happen. If you have the link to that, you can send it to my email, contact@anthonyblogan.com. You can also shoot it right down there in the comment section or hit me on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Send it to me, please. I love to see a black person at their job doing their job right and then get drug out in handcuffs. Right. So, like I said, if it was me, I wouldn't have done anything but just smile all the way to the bank because I know I'm about to get a big payday. And the police here, I don't know why that guy was really acting like that. I think the other officers are pretty cool. They weren't really, to that extreme. Maybe the guy was having a bad day. I can't really tell what was going on. But at the end of the day, I think what they were trying to do from the beginning was to mitigate their losses and their liability from their involvement with the guy that's in the crash because of the guy that was running away from the police that crashed into him. But at the end of it, they probably made the situation worse because now they got to pay him, of course, because it wasn't his fault that he got hit by the actual vehicle head on. And you got to pay the nurse and probably the hospital too. And then you got to have this whole big PR campaign all over your head and down your back. At a certain point, it's probably better to just err on the side of caution, and especially if somebody got a law right in front of you. Like they printed it out and they're showing it to you and they say, hey, I cannot give you this blood sample if you don't have one of 3 things. You got to have a warrant. You got to have him under arrest. He has to be taken into custody, or you got to have consent from the patient. But the patient was unconscious and there was no warrant and he was not under arrest. So she cannot give that information because at the end of the day, if she does, the police get what they want and that's fine. But then what happens when the guy wakes up and he's like, okay, who did that? Who gave them my blood sample? Now she could be in trouble. She might go to jail. So ironically, some of those same police officers that came to get the blood sample that drug her out in the handcuffs may come back to put her in handcuffs again if she was actually give the actual blood sample. You see how that works? So at the end of the day, she was doing right and the police here, unfortunately, were wrong. But don't get it twisted. This is not just the normal routine behavior of police. The average police officer is out there trying to do right. They're not trying to ruin your day. They're just trying to do the right thing and go home to their family. So don't let this person, this one numbnut kind of guy, define all officers for you. In any profession, in any situation, in any kind of endeavor you go into, there's going to be people that know what they're doing and people that don't. There's going to be people that make mistakes and people that don't make mistakes. So at the end of the day, this officer could have been a stellar guy, 20 years in the force or whatever. Today, for whatever reason, he made a bad choice and it is what it is. It probably won't be him that pays for it necessarily. He may have to get, early retirement or whatever, or something like that. Internal discipline. Maybe he even will get fired, but I doubt it. But I think the bigger thing would be that the force who was trying to avoid a big payout from the guy who got hit by the car that was on the run from the police, they're going to end up paying more money at the end. So what do you think? Do you think that Alex Wubbels, the nurse in the situation, was correct for just going by the book? It's like, look, here's the law we got to follow. If you don't have warrant, if he's not under arrest, and if you don't have his consent, you cannot get that blood sample because, again, you have HIPAA. You got all kind of laws that prevent her from doing that. It's just like this. What if you have a guy that's in the hospital laid up unconscious and you have somebody that wants to get child support from him, and then you go in there with a cotton swab and, you know, get him on the cheek and then present it to the woman or the lawyer or whoever to put him on child support? Is that ethical? Can you do that? Is it lawful? That's one thing. It's one thing to be unethical and something else to be unlawful. In a situation here in Salt Lake City, Utah, in a hospital, I think the most important thing was to be lawful. The ethics are pretty clear. That was a clear violation, but the law is something else, because at the end of the day, I'm not putting my freedom in jeopardy because somebody is misinformed about what the actual law is. And doesn't matter if they're a police officer or not. I'm going to say one more thing before I close here. A lot of people act like they know what the law is. They act like they're paralegals, they're lawyers or whatever. But at the end of the day, the average person does not know what the law is. A lot of them can barely read their own name, let alone figure out what the actual law means. So if you don't really know what's going on with the law, if you don't really know what's happening in the country, then you need to just not try to defend yourself like the way she defended herself. Go ahead, go to jail and try to get you a good lawyer. Get you out and then sue. But don't try to act like you know what the law is. I see all kind of dumb stuff online. People talking about this law means this law means that, this word means this. It's like, look, if you don't know what you're talking about for real, then you need to phone a friend, do something else. Just like the lady Alex Wubbels did. She had probably the supervisor on the phone explaining what's going on. She got a computer printout of the actual policy and showed it to the police. Like, here, this is what it is. So if you don't really have that kind of backup with you, then I suggest you don't really try to do something like the way she did. But whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.